Good morning everyone and happy Tuesday. Today I'm doing a video about pit bulls, and I will keep doing videos about pit bulls until it's not necessary. So for those of you that don't know, pit bulls is a broad category and it covers several different breeds that look quite different. However, because people tend to assume that they're all pit bulls, they're classified all as pit bulls. So this includes the American Pit Bull Terrier, the American Staffordshire Terrier, usually called Staffies, the American Bully, the Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and occasionally the American Bulldog. But this also includes any mixed breed dogs that share even a single one of these breeds, because quite often the traits are quite dominant and you will be able to tell. And they get a bad rap because most people who get them because they look threatening. And according to research, that people used to use them to, hunt animals and guard their homes. And now that's much less necessary than it used to be. So the pit bulls have become household pets. And many of the people that got them have never trained them, have never socialized them properly with other dogs, and as a result, they have behavioral difficulties. And a lot of this, I would say most of this, is due to owner responsibility. And I've done several videos about owner responsibility. However, it's a different case with the pit bull, because I've seen it in the case even with one of my friends wanted to get a husky, and I said, you live in an apartment, probably not the smartest idea. Huskies need a lot of room to run, they need lots of exercise, and you work 9 to 5 and you live in an apartment. So ultimately you have to make the responsible choice and do what would work best for your dog. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently, and she said, I'm not ready to get a dog right now because of the situation, and she explained everything to me, but when I move and I get a place that can have a dog, I will absolutely get one. And a lot of people aren't aware enough to make that decision, which is really sad, because ultimately, as pet parents, we always want to do what's best for our animals, and sometimes that means putting their needs before ours. And considering you become a pet parent when you first get them, if the reason that you made that decision was because you wanted one and not thinking about what the animal's life would look like with you, then ultimately that's not starting off on a very good foot. So many pet parents choose to get dogs because their friend had a dog of that breed, or one of their family members had a dog of that breed, or it looks cute and they think that, oh yeah, it'd be so great to have a dog like that. And I have dissuaded many a person from getting the breed that they wanted because it doesn't suit their lifestyle. So for example, I have a friend who sculpts with clay, and he wanted to get a Samoyed, which, for those who don't know what that is, it's a very big, white, fluffy dog that requires a lot of grooming and sheds a lot. I said, you won't be able to sell your sculptures because if your dog goes in that room, they'll all get covered in hair. So perhaps a dog that sheds less, or just has less hair in general, would work better for your lifestyle. And he thought about it and he thought about it and he said, you know what, you're right. The quality of my sculptures is very important to me, and if I do that, I'm compromising the quality of my work. I said yes. Another friend of mine was so convinced that he was ready for a puppy. He's like, yes, I'm sure. It's like, okay, this is back when Kai was a puppy. And I said, okay, come watch her for a couple of hours while I go to work. So he came and I explained what to do, what not to do, everything was fine. I go to work, come back, I'm exhausted, and Kaya, runs and hides behind me, and I look at him and I say, what did you do while I was gone? And he said, well, she was so cute, I wanted to play with her. I was like, she's a puppy, she still needs naps. They spend a very large majority of their day, probably about a third of their day, if not more, sleeping. So you have to let them sleep. They're like babies, they need their rest. And as soon as he left, she passed out for the rest of the day. So you have to be able to meet their needs. And if you can't, ultimately, you can choose to change something about that. A lot of people tend to rehome their dogs in that case. But starting from a ground level perspective, if you just don't get a dog if you're not ready for one, bringing it back to pit bulls though, because that's what we were talking about. A lot of people think that they're trendy and that's why they get one. That was the whole same argument with the French bulldog in the last couple of years. But people don't understand, you know, the health concerns of that breed, the genetic concerns of that breed. And with pit bulls especially, people who have never had a dog before, never trained a dog before, don't know anything about dogs, and will get a pit bull. And then, because in Ontario, it is illegal to own a pit bull before, I don't remember the exact year, but we're still trying to work on removing breed-specific legislation. In Ontario, we had a really big win last year, and they moved forward a bill that would repeal breed-specific legislation, but then COVID happened, and we haven't found out yet because it hasn't been brought through the system. But people get pit bulls and then don't know how to train them, don't socialize them, and then are surprised when their dog is aggressive. And if something does happen, the onus is on the dog and not the person. And the dog gets punished for the person not taking responsibility for their dog and teaching them and training them and making sure that it's safe. So, and I've done a whole other videos and long rants about this, but if you cannot be responsible for your dog and their training, just don't get one. It's very simple. But I've had this conversation with my friend in that if we lived in an idyllic world, and obviously COVID is not a part of that right now, people would have to prove they were competent before they were allowed to get a dog. In humans' case, if you can give birth to a baby, in most cases, you're competent to keep them. In most cases, I'm not going to get into it, but in dogs' cases, because we're making the choice to bring them into our lives, we need to take the responsibility to make sure that their home and their life is suitable for their needs. It's very simple. The same thing as if you were planting, I know a lot of people are gardening this summer. If you plant a flower or if you plant a vegetable, you plant it according to that specific needs of the plant. If the flower needs sun, you plant it in the sun. If the flower needs shade, you put it in the shade. If it needs lots of water or a little bit of water, it will change how you treat that plant. Dogs have different needs as well. And if we don't take them into consideration, there is going to be more and more concern. And this is another video that I talked about. It's basically perpetuating the cycle of aggressive dogs. Because if one untrained dog traumatizes another one, then that dog becomes sensitive and more reactive to dogs that it interacts with, and then it just grows exponentially. Which is an issue that we have with Kaya because she's been attacked 3 separate times. And with COVID, people are finally giving us the distance that we wanted on walks, and now she's actually really good with dogs. But because people are now respecting her needs and giving us space, she's doing really well. So don't be afraid to tell people either when you're walking, you know, like my dog's not friendly, don't approach us, or, you know, my dog's not comfortable around other dogs. If you could, you know, give us a little more space, that would be great. But so, you do have to tell people sometimes, because they'll be like, oh, my dog wants to be your dog's friend. It's like, not in all cases. Dogs that's just not how it works. So again, it comes to back to owner responsibility and making sure that you're ready to make that change in your life and do what needs to be done, basically. But Pitbulls are amazing dogs. I work on several. They're just the most beautiful, most amazing dogs. And those of you that are lucky enough to have some, I hope someday I can get a Staffy or a Staffy mix, because I think they would have a similar energy level to Kaya. But hopefully when the breed-specific legislation comes through, that would be amazing. And I know some rescues that I can look into to get one. However, definitely a dog with less hair than Kaya, because I know my needs. And Kaya loves her hair. It keeps her warm in the winter. And she does shed a fair bit, but her coat requires maintenance. And I know that with my next dog, I do love having a fluffy dog, and I will probably always have one, but I also would like to see what it's like to have a dog without. And I may spend some time with my friends' dogs before I make a decision, just because a lot of them aren't super fluffy. So I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you on Saturday on Instagram for my next live video.